This video contains massive spoilers for In Golden Flame. If you're planning on playing in this adventure, do not watch any further. Chapter 3. Some Sick Game. Beat 13. Wrecking Fields. This beat takes place some weeks after the team returns to Hell's Gate, although no more than a couple of months. Feel free to play out some vignettes or expand on individual PC's backstories during that time. When you're ready to advance the plot, the next beat begins in the middle of things. After the chaos on the icebreaker, an uneasy peace has settled across Calliope. The Hellhounds are still making death threats against you, but even those are getting rarer. There are rumors of internal strife in the Enterprise, some kind of leadership struggle. The faith of the One is present on Hell's Gate, and has been for a while now. You didn't notice before, but after the icebreaker, you started to see it. There's an old grow house on the 4-hab ring that's been abandoned for years, and about a year ago, they just moved right in and turned it into a temple. Right now, though, there's a new source of tension. All over Calliope, people are being taken. It's mostly from isolated habs in the inner system, places that can't defend themselves. But a couple of days back, 18 people from Endymion's Lament were kidnapped in broad daylight. They're getting bolder. Everyone knows who's doing it. It's Impact Dynamics. Roderick Steele is, in fact, proud of it. Now, a salvage team has gone silent while out in a wreck field near shore, one of SpaceEngine's moons. The militia detail assigned to them isn't responding either. You get a ping from Siren. Look alive, Marines. We're coming up on the field, and this as close as I get. That junk pile used to be a Karakin battlecruiser, so watch out for unexploded munitions. And be careful. The whole thing's in a decaying orbit. I'm not reading the salvage ship in there, but there's too much interference for that to mean anything. Give the PCs time to interact, and move about the Dragon's Tooth before deployment. If the team wants more information on the wreck, Siren tells them it was a Karakin battlecruiser, the FKSBC Pistoclaris, reported lost with all hands 38 years ago. Baronic Unified Command's Memorial Database states the cause as a direct hit from the spinal cannon of the Armory Dreadnought P CVDN Voltumna. However, local records suggest the Pistoclaris was absent for most of the relevant engagement, with its only notable actions being to arrive in Shore's orbit and immediately explode. The most likely explanation is that the ship's commander tried to run with scissors. That is, they executed a near-light bolt, while their ship's spinal weapon was charged. The wreck field is only 1,200 kilometers above the surface of shore, and is dropping year by year. Projections suggest it'll crash by mid-century. A wide donut-shaped area around its orbital path is filled with fast-moving debris, making it too risky for ships to get close. It must be approached in mechs, or not at all. Worse, something, it's unclear exactly what, is still active within the field center, and it causes severe electromagnetic interference. Communication gets harder the closer one gets to the center of the field. All in all, the wreck of the Pistoclaris is a very dangerous salvage prospect. But that also means it hasn't been stripped bare yet. The PCs are looking for a dozen civilian salvage mechs and 6 combat frames piloted by members of the militia. They were dropped off a couple of days ago by a short-range freighter delivering salvage teams to several wrecks around Stygia. Strictly speaking, Union regulations require that each team have its own dedicated transport, but the gate's been short of ships for decades. Quite often, a team will get dropped off to do some work, left for a while, and then picked up later. The wreck field is a tense and eerie place, dark and silent, with colossal sections of ship hull tumbling slowly through space, interspersed with dangerous clouds of shrapnel. A fight is coming, but build up the tension before it hits. There's a lot of folktales about wreck fields, shapes glimpsed briefly at the end of hallways, strange sensor pings, voices in the radio static, that mutter half-understood words. After an unsettlingly quiet search, the PCs will pick up a weak signal over the local interference, a distress beacon. It belongs to Takama LK El-Kayet, one of the missing militia pilots. Her mech is just sitting there, unpowered, in a large chamber. There's a life sign inside it, but it doesn't respond to hails. The PCs might not fall for this obvious trap. That's fine. If they don't take the bait, the enemies will still attack, but they'll do so from a less advantageous position. Combat. Surprise. Surprise. Sitrep. Extraction. Lancer, page 270. Objective. LK's Tortuga, size 2, 16 HP. Enemy forces. For 3 PCs. 1 elite pirate assassin with sap and prying claws. 1 veteran witch with chain and hacker. 1 pirate demolisher with concussion missiles and prying claws. 1 rainmaker. For 4 PCs. Plus 1 veteran archer with blinding shells and lightning reflexes. For 5 PCs. Plus 1 elite pirate berserker with harpoon cannon. Allied forces. For 5 PCs. LK, veteran sentinel, size 2 with Punisher ammunition and lesser sight. Details. This fight serves 2 purposes: to directly confront the PCs with the threat of the abductions taking place across the system, and to give your players a chance to get used to the new frames and gear they acquired at license level 2. Players should know that they're going to get a full repair right after this fight. In addition to regular cover, the chamber also contains several size 1 unexploded munitions. These provide hard cover, but using them for this purpose is very unwise. They only have 1 HP, and if they take any damage at all, they explode. Any character in range 1 must make an agility save with a target of 12 or take 2d6 blast, and be knocked prone. Characters who succeed on the save take half damage and are not knocked prone. And yes, a mech with total strength suite I can throw them, in which case they explode at their destination, dealing only the explosive damage stated above, using the PC's save target instead of 12, and knocking affected enemies prone on a failed save instead of inflicting knockback. It doesn't place a piece of hardcover next to the PC's target for reasons that should hopefully be obvious. This extraction sitrep works a little differently to the standard one. Firstly, there is no time limit. The hostile forces don't have any more reinforcements in easy reach. Once the full strength of their force is deployed, that's all they have. Secondly, if the PCs fell for the bait, the PCs deploy next to the extraction target, but the entire enemy force starts on the field and an enemy character takes the first turn. LK's Tortuga. No, please. I insist is in cold shutdown, and she's locked out of the controls. An adjacent PC can make an engineering check as a quick action to jumpstart the reactor, after which a PC will need to invade her mech, Defense 10, to end the lockout. Once both of these actions are performed, LK is able to move and fight under her own power as an NPC ally, using the profile above. She's no longer subject to escort rules, but this also means hostiles now consider her a valid target. She still needs to extract at the extraction zone as usual, but as long as she's in her mech, she can move there herself. If her mech is destroyed, she ejects and turns back into a size extraction objective with 6 HP. This might be the first time the PCs have encountered an assassin or a witch, so be prepared to explain how their mechanics work as they come up. Several enemies in this fight have the pirate template, meaning they do bonus damage on critical hits. The hostiles in this encounter also have prying claws, a terrifying ability that lets them tear a pilot right out of their mech. Note that the enemies in this fight are trying to take prisoners, not corpses. They will happily incapacitate the PCs, but they won't kill them. The hostiles have covered up the livery on their mechs, but a success with the spot skill trigger will reveal that they are members of the Hellhounds. Outcome: PC defeat. If PCs, or LK, are defeated but unable to extract, they're captured by the pirates. Within a few hours, they're herded out of the wreck and onto a transport that's just showed up. Siren can't help. She doesn't have enough firepower to match the pirates. It quickly becomes clear, despite their efforts to hide it, that the kidnappers are members of the Hellhounds, or at least were. They're particularly abusive towards the PCs, whom they recognize as Andros Capella's killers. Given that this is potentially uncomfortable content, make sure that players are informed in advance and safety tools are available. If a PC plays their cards right, they might be able to obtain some of the same information about the current state of the Hellhounds, as detailed below under the victory section. Reward good role-playing or a high-skill trigger roll. The Hellhounds are angry, but it's a talkative kind of anger. They want to vent their frustrations at the PCs, whom they see as responsible for their current grief. A few hours pass, but just before the transport breaks orbit, there's a massive commotion and the sounds on battle erupt all over the ship. The door of the holding cell slides open to reveal several people in elaborate hard suits, resembling knightly armor and covered in chivalric emblems. At their head is a tall, smirking woman who the PCs will be familiar with by reputation, if not personally, Mistress Elsk, leader of the Knights of the Dark Core, another pirate faction. She announces that she's the bearer of excellent news. Not only have the PCs been honored with a rescue by the finest outlaws in Calliope, but she's rescued the salvage team and the other militia members who were abducted as well. Thanks to her, they will all soon be returned to their homes and families. Even better, she's already thought of a way you can repay her kindness. In fact, she was just on her way to Hell's Gate to talk to you specifically. Isn't chance a funny thing? Proceed to beat 14 in Shining Glamour, page 152. PC victory. If the PCs clearly outmatch the pirates, they will attempt to retreat. This isn't worth losing their mechs or their lives over. They already got what they came for, a fact they will happily gloat about over local comms. If the PCs cut off their exit, some pirates will fight to the bitter end, knowing Hell's Gate is unlikely to be kind to human traffickers. Some will surrender anyway, seeing it as better to take a chance than die for sure. Any prisoners the PCs take will try to conceal their affiliation with the Hellhounds, but they're not in a good position to do so. Some of their mechs and hardsuits still have the colors and livery. Some might break under interrogation. Regardless of what happens, eventually one of them snaps and starts blaming everything on the PCs, and reveals something concerning, "We had to take this job. It was all we could get. The hounds are falling apart. Nobody takes us seriously anymore. Everything went to shit when you killed the bossman. Half of us are starving, and the other half went batshit and joined a fucking cult." If the PCs ask after the cult, it becomes quite clear who the captive is talking about. The Firebird creeps. Heard you ran into them on the icebreaker. Wish you had killed each other. Their prisoner likely won't be cooperative, but with a little persuasion, they can be convinced to go into more detail about what's happening. Half a year back, this psycho shows up at the fort. Says he can give us a line on some good salvage if he can stay a while and preach. Bossman says, "Sure, why not?" Next thing we know, a third of the hounds are babbling this Firebird apocalypse bullshit. Bossman says the psycho's gotta go, but by that time enough hounds are brainwashed. It starts a mutiny. Psycho says, "Do one more thing for me, and I'll go." Sends the bossman out to some wreck he wants something from. Well, you fuckers know how that turned out. Now the fort's a free-for-all, and it's all your fault. Nobody can step into the bossman's shoes. Every time someone tries, it turns into a bloodbath, and the psycho's just sitting there laughing, pulling strings. Can't go back to legit life with the ink, and the repage can't defect either. Knights won't have us, 'cause we broke the code. The blacksmith put a death mark on anyone who helped strike break-in 4, and the circuit? Well, even if they weren't just as much of a fucking cult, they've gone totally a double UOL. Even the Moonlighters don't respect us no more. So, yeah, when that piece of shit Steele calls up and says he'll pay for every person we bring him, we took him up on it. Think I wanted this? Think it makes me proud? But he's the only one left who'll hire us. In any case, the PCs may return to Hell's Gate at their leisure. But with the somber news that the salvage team and most of its militia escort have been taken. Beat 14. In shining glamour. As this beat begins, the PCs have either returned to Hell's Gate, or are being returned to Hell's Gate by Mistress Elsk and the Knights of the Dark Corps. In either case, it starts with a squadron of Dark Corps spaceships arriving outside Hell's Gate. If the PCs are on the station, it's a few hours to a day after they returned from the wreck field. They get an urgent all-hands call from Zinfandel Dijon, stating that pirate vessels have been detected on approach to the station. Every militia pilot needs to get into their mechs and be ready to defend the station. However, the pirates decelerate as they approach the station's point defense screen and politely request docking clearance. If the PCs are listening in on the channel, the operator passes it up the chain to their superior, who passes it up the chain to their superior, who finally passes it up the chain to Jerry. Jerry looks bewildered, but there's a determination in his voice you don't usually hear. He taps his fist on his desk to punctuate his reply. Come? Aboard? You've got to be kidding me, Elsk. You're a pirate. I'm not letting you on my station. The woman on the other end of the call moves aside, revealing several familiar faces, the salvage team, and the rest of LK's squad. But I have your people with me, Jerry. I rescued them from the hellhounds, and I'm bringing them home. You wouldn't shoot a woman who rescued your citizens out of the goodness of her own heart, would you? Well, even if you would, you won't shoot your own people. So, I'm coming aboard. If Mistress Elsk rescued the PCs, they're on camera too. In either case, Jerry is out of options. He relents and allows Mistress Elsk's ship, but only her ship, to dock. Militia pilots are warned to get ready, but probably not for violence, for pretension. The orderly machine drone of the docking bay is broken as a line of 8 pirates, bearing trumpets and horns, file out of the transport and begin blasting a fanfare. Each of them is clad in a hard suit that's styled after the armor of a medieval knight. Oh, for Christ's sake, Zinfandel grunts. You get the feeling that if you weren't in microgravity, the pirates would be unfurling a red carpet. There she is, gliding serenely out of the airlock. Tall, broad-shouldered, with her hair dyed silver at the roots, fading into sunset purples and blues. Like the others, her hard suit is fashioned as knight's armor, but hers has a lot more emblems on it. She also has a sword, an actual sword, strapped to her waist. She's flanked by 6 guards carrying pikes and a young attendant, a squire, carrying a scroll. They unfurl it and begin to read from it. Presenting Elsk, Grand Mistress Marshal to the most noble order of Knights of the Dark Corps, her honor guard, and several residents of Hell's Gate, freshly liberated. Zinfandel narrows their eyes. Hope you're not expecting a parade. Elsk smirks. I didn't know that was an option. But no, the only gratitude I require is an audience with the station director. I'm owed that much. She turns to your team, sweeping her hand across each of you, and I'd like them to be there as well. Elsk has the unwritten right to request this. Long Rim Custom states that when someone saves your life, whether from death or other unpleasant fate, like slavery, you owe them a recompense you're easily able to give. Jerry has no obligation to grant her request, but everyone else saved is obligated to ask him to. Jerry soon realizes it's easiest to just say yes. The Knights of the Dark Corps. The Knights of the Dark Core are a great example of how living in Calliope can make you a bit odd. Founded more than 60 years ago by Prem Bagat, its first Grandmaster Marshal, the Dark Core is a self-described chivalric order of hedge knights. In reality, they're still pirates just like any other sunlighter, but they're far and away the most principled pirates the system has. Each initiate must swear a number of oaths in a formal ceremony before being awarded the title of knight. These oaths forbid a knight from, among other things, killing an unarmed person without giving them a chance to surrender, and stealing from the poor except in a life or death emergency. The knights prey almost exclusively on the wealthy. The system has a fair bit of affection for the knights, grudging as it might be. While they haven't mastered the art of widespread wealth redistribution, more often than not, they indulge in charity towards Calliope's poorest. They also see it as their duty to enforce standards of behavior on Calliope's other criminals, be they moonlighters or sunlighters. Pirates must be wary of straying too far from the code. As the knights call it, lest the knights come to correct them. Another thing that endears Calliope to the knights is just how extra they are. They're knights. They roll around the system in mechs and hard suits, custom tailored to look like medieval armor. They carry swords and pikes. They have squires. They refer to each other as sir, and talk about chivalry and oaths. Most of all, they seem to do all of this without irony. This isn't some big joke to them. They're genuinely invested in it all. They're so ridiculous that it's hard to stay mad at them, and yet they have an intensity and conviction that makes it hard not to take them seriously. Given their high standards and overall strangeness, the Knights are by far the smallest major pirate band in Calliope. However, when the Knights stress quality over quantity, that's not an idle boast. Their pilots are far and away the best trained of any criminal outfit in the system. This is the primary reason other pirates care about the code. Break it too many times, and a knight may come knocking, and a knight is absolutely not to be trifled with. The Knights and the Hellhounds are inveterate enemies, due to the Hellhounds' brutality and disdain for the code. The circuit also often falls foul of them, although they've collaborated in the past. The Burning Forge is usually on good terms with them, although a recent undisclosed incident has soured relations. Mistress Elsk. She / her. Grand Mistress Marshal. Elsk is the Knight's 5th Grand Master Marshal, a position she's held for 12 years. Although she's not the first woman to hold the title, she's the first to insist on the gendered Grand Mistress, for reasons she refuses to elaborate on. As leader of the Knights, Elsk has presented herself as a return to principle, after her predecessor allowed the Knights' enforcement of the code to lapse. After defeating him in single combat, she took the unusual step of exiling him, rather than allowing him honorable retirement as a martial instructor. She also had his name struck from the Order's records. Elsk is tall and broad-shouldered, with a livid scar running up her right cheek, which she received in a duel with the previous Grandmaster Marshal. She dyes her hair in muted sunset colors. By her accent, mannerisms, and figures of speech, she's obviously Karakin, and likely high nobility, but it's unclear from which house. In person, she manages the delicate balancing act of being grandiose but still approachable. She's a pirate queen, and she lives life to enjoy it. She's a lover of luxury, but she's more than happy to share with others. After all, being able to splash the cash around and feed the hungry is a sign of her wealth and status. Elsk is also a nexus of scandalous gossipage. She's been rumored to be in secret relationships with just about every major figure in Calliope, often several at once. Some folks even say she starts these rumors herself. The meeting. Jerry schedules the meeting with Elsk and the PCs as soon as he possibly can. Having a pirate leader on the station is only going to cause trouble, and the faster this meeting is done with, the faster she can leave. You walk into Jerry's office to discover Elsk has already arrived. and is sitting perched on his desk, very close to him. Jerry has a look of indescribable discomfort on his face. As he sees you, he smiles and blinks slowly, in a way that suggests he wants to scream and is having trouble holding it in. He squeaks a greeting. "Oh, good. You're here." Elsk proceeds to explain everything. Roderick Steele is behind the abductions. Everyone knew that already. What they don't know is why. He's about to unveil his competitor to the system's mech fighting leagues, the Steel Games. He's apparently been watching a lot of footage from Begum's Battle Royal lately, because his idea is to dump a lot of people into mechs and force them to kill each other, until only one is left. This is a flagrant violation of the Utopian Pillars, of course. But Steele's been violating them for years now, and Union's repeated failure to punish him has only emboldened him. Captain Ordaz of the UNSC Thames refuses to intervene, and Elsk doesn't even blame her. She has a single carrier, and Impact Dynamics has an entire defense fleet. Steele has had an arena, the Steel Dome, built on the surface of Asphodel, and the abductees are being brought there. Approach by space or air is out. The Impact Dynamics fleet controls the planet's orbit, and the arena has top-of-the-line anti-air defenses. The only option is on land, below radar altitude, where surveillance is spotty. The Knights are already spread too thin fighting Steele's hired abduction teams. They've always been the smallest of the pirate bands. They don't have any manpower to spare. Even if they did, the only place ships can put down without attracting attention is Furnace City, somewhere that won't give pirates like them landing clearance. The PCs have already demonstrated that they can punch far above their weight and accomplish tasks few else in their position could. She needs a small team of competent lancers to sneak into Furnace City, brave Asphodel's wilderness, and infiltrate the arena. Once there, they'll need to locate and free the prisoners. Shut down the anti-air defenses, junk as many of Steele's security forces as possible, and then wreck the arena so it can't ever be used again. If Steele gets away with this, if nobody stops him, how long before he starts making us pay for food and water and people? He already acts with impunity, and everyone's too afraid to stop him. We need to draw a line in the sand. Send a clear message to both him and the system that he's not invincible, and there's some things we won't allow him to do. If the PCs have more questions for Elsk, she's happy to answer them. How she knows this. Trouble at Ches Impact. Steele always underpays his workers. But now mid-level managers are feeling the squeeze too, and the grumbling has started. Nothing public yet. Of course, they'd get tossed out an airlock. But some of them know how to get their grievances heard by the right ears, and one of them leaked insider information on this new scheme. They get revenge on Steele, but their hands stay clean. The timescale. I can't give you exact dates, unfortunately. They already have enough abductees to run a couple of rounds, but the arena isn't functional yet, and they're still fixing the broadcast equipment. I think you have a couple of weeks at least, but you should hurry. Help in Furnace City. I can get you a valid landing permit, but only for a couple of ships. That's the extent of my influence planetside. The Burning Forge holds sway there. And after the tiff we had last year, I'm not on the best of terms with the blacksmith. That's why we can't do this ourselves, hence my being here. Still, I think he might be sympathetic to the cause anyway. You might try talking to him. He won't be hard to find. As for Furnace City itself, take in mind that they've got Impact Dynamics orbiting directly above them, and it'd be risky to oppose them openly. You'll need to convince them you know what you're doing. Even if it's not your forte, come up with a plan before you arrive. They're more likely to trust you that way. Route to the arena. We can give you the arena's exact location, but figuring out a route is something you're going to have to work out yourself. We don't have planetside reconnaissance. I'd advise leaning on the locals. They'll know the terrain. expected resistance. Steel's security forces don't mess around, but he can't have pulled that many off regular duty to staff the arena, or we'd be seeing it elsewhere in the system. Expect a well-armed, well-trained force, but in limited numbers. Extracting the prisoners. That's something you'll have to work out on the ground. Furnace City isn't my territory. That's burning forge turf. And I can't make deals with them directly right now, for reasons. Danger of retaliation. Yes, there's a possibility Steel might attempt to retaliate against you if you ruin his arena. But the alternative is you do nothing and let this go unopposed. You think he won't eventually lash out at you anyway? At least this way, we'll force him to look even more petty and vindictive. Maybe we'll even convince that Union captain to finally step in. The pay. Is it not enough to know you're doing a good turn for the system, rescuing innocents from an unhappy death, and spitting in the eye of a tyrant? Must this be about nothing more than material benefit? She pauses for effect. Oh, come now. I'm only kidding. If your hearts can bear the burden of being paid by a notorious pirate, I'm more than happy to be your wealthy patron. And on top of that, pull this off, and I can get you the equipment you need to beef up that ship of yours. The Dragon's Tooth, you call it? The title, Mistress. She smirks. I think you've already made an assumption, so I won't spoil your fun by clarifying. They PCs can still refuse Elsk at this point, and that's okay. You'll need to prepare something different for them to do for this chapter. Explore a PC's backstory, perhaps. Elsk, driven to desperation, goes to the inner cult for Hellpage. They're only too happy to take the job. The arena gets ruined. The abductees get rescued. And a lot of grateful people become converts. Tick 2 segments on the cult influence clock. If the PCs accept, they can begin making preparations to leave. Elsk suggests, despite the urgency, that they give it a couple of days before they depart. She needs time to do something flashy and distracting elsewhere in the system, so that people forget she was here. Prior to departure, the PCs get a full repair to patch up and adjust their loadouts after the recent fight. While preparations for the mission are underway, the PCs have time for a little bit of relaxation. Since they've spent a whole mission away on the icebreaker and are about to spend another on Asphodel, this is a good chance to ensure the PCs stay familiar with the Gates residents. If you need some plot hooks, consider the following. Jerry's flipping between anxious and furious because he just found out that Phase Shift, the only competing mining company in the system, somehow landed a lucrative procurement contract that didn't even get offered to Hell's Gate. Cerulean Enceladus has heard of the PC's impending trip to Furnace City and would like them to run some totally above-board goods to Ratio Salvager, a legitimate business associate. Following Elsk's visit, Striga von Oldenburg is even more paranoid than usual. She demands the PCs tell her if Elsk is working for them. Who's them? Well, depending on whether Striga's on her 5th or 6th energy drink of the day, it's either a race of hyper-intelligent vent crabs or a cabal of SecCom remnants led by a mutant clone of John Cretan Harrison, IY Tai. Chief MacArthur would like a PC to check in on someone living in one of the Outlander settlements beyond Furnace City. She uses the word sister, but it's obvious in the way she says it that the relationship is a lot more complicated. Zinfandel wants 1 or 2 PCs to help with a training session. They're running for some militia recruits in the simulator. By the way, have the PCs noticed how nobody's heard from the circuit lately? Weird for technocultists to be this quiet. Hello. Customer name. Bartender motherfucker requests that you acquire some liquor the Outlanders may? Do not worry. You will be compensated with dev/random days of free drinks. Give another insight into how Hell's Gate is faring based on the status of the station's stability clock.